if eyes could tell the truth.
I'm going to object to this entire series of questions. Simply fishing under the statute does not vitiate the crime of open carry.
And number two, your legal opinion is not my concern right now about what the law does or doesn't say. I'm asking the officer a question.
You keep representing to him what a Florida statute says, and you're telling him something that's not true. So if you want to keep misquoting the law, you go ahead, but I'm going to make an objection to it.
This is why they need to get rid of qualified immunity really fast.
We're back on the video record at 2:45 p.m.
Sergeant Baldock, whose decision was it to approach these individuals in this tactical formation?
Before, to the best of my recollection, we talked about how we're going to approach these gentlemen before we got on the pier, and we all came to the agreement, we're going to approach tactically with our weapons drawn, safely securing each one, and then once they're secure, started the investigation, figuring out what's going on, why are these guys here, see if everything checks out.
At the time you walked onto that pier, had you been given any information by any person that these individuals had made an aggressive move towards anybody?
No.
At the time you walked onto that pier, had you been given any information by any person that these people were in the act of committing a criminal offense?
No. Other than open carry.
Okay. Which you now know wasn't even a crime.
Correct.
Objection in the form of the question.
With
Object to the form of the question.
with the exception,
Take a breath in between, so let us
Gotcha.
object.
with the exception of the fishing or hunting.
So it's your understanding that open carry is a crime unless you are hunting, fishing, or camping.
Correct.
So open carry is also a crime unless you are a law enforcement officer.
Correct.
Okay. So equal weight, right there in the same statute, right?
Correct.
So it's not really an exception as much as it is the law of the state of Florida, right?
Objection in
Correct.
the form of the question.
The form of the question.
So the fact that you believed they were committing the crime of open carry when you walked out there was more about your lack of legal knowledge and lack of your knowledge of Florida law, and not the fact that they were committing a crime, right?
Objection in the form of the question, argumentative.
The form of the question. He wasn't wrong. He was right about the law.
You can answer.
Okay, repeat the question.
You did not have knowledge that fishing allowed them to openly carry at that time, correct?
Objection in the form of the question.
Object to the form of the question.
You can
At
answer.
that time, my top priority was officer safety and safety of the public.
Not the question I asked, sir. Madam Court Reporter, can you read the question back?
Question, you did not have knowledge that fishing allowed them to openly carry at that time.
I'm going to object to this entire series of questions. Simply fishing under the statute does not vitiate the crime of open carry. There are numerous other elements.
Mr. Rosenwald, that is, number one, a speaking objection, which we know how Mr. Switkus feels about that. And number two, your legal opinion is not my concern right now about what the law does or doesn't say. I'm asking the officer a question.
Well, what my concern is that you keep representing to him what a Florida statute says, and you're telling him something that's not true. So if you want to keep misquoting the law, you go ahead, but I'm going to make an objection to it.
Okay. So, officer, you now understand that it is not a crime to have an open carried firearm while fishing, right?
Objection in the form of the question.
Form,
I understand that, yes.
Okay. But that was not your understanding on the day of this incident, was it?
form,
Join.
You can answer.
My understanding at that moment was that they were open carrying.
And that they were violating the law by doing so.
Correct.
Objection in the form.
Maybe ask your question in a simpler fashion.
Can you describe how you and the other officers approached the individuals on the pier? Whatever words you would like to use, sir.
We approached side by side. I was on the far right side, nearest to the south side, and the other officers were across to my left side, and so they had more of a line of sight, and we drew our weapons.
Did you hear another officer count down for you to draw your weapons?
No.
Did you hear another officer give a specific command that indicated to you when you should draw your weapon?
I heard. I don't know specifically which officer.
Do you remember what words he used?
Not 100% exact, but I believe it was, I'm going to draw.
Regardless, as you were approaching the individuals on the pier, you heard one of your fellow officers give some command or statement that you understood to be an instruction to draw your weapon, didn't you?
I wouldn't say that it was an instruction to draw my weapon. It was informing me that other officers were going to draw their weapons. So I should proceed as I saw fit.
Okay. Who made the decision that all these individuals would be handcuffed?
It was just what we did. There was no, I don't recall anybody specifically saying, it's just what we do to render the scene safe.
So you and your fellow officers proceeded to detain 5 individuals on the pier that day, right?
Yes.
At the time that you decided to detain these 5 individuals, were you doing so for the purpose of investigating for criminal activity?
What we believed at the time, yes.
What criminal activity did you believe was or was about to be afoot?
They were open carrying firearms.
Okay. Any other criminal activity, sir?
No.
Okay, so just that they were open carrying firearms, right?
Yeah.
You were open carrying a firearm, sir, right?
Yes.
Well, what would your reaction have been if one of these gentlemen had pointed a firearm at you because they believed that you were breaking the law regarding the open carrying of firearms?
Form.
You can go ahead and answer, officer.
I would have drawn my weapon and fired on them.
Okay. So your reaction to somebody pointing a firearm at you for violating the Florida law against the open carry of firearms would have been to draw your weapon and fire on them?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of any legal distinction in the Florida statutes between the actions you were doing that day in open carrying your firearm and the actions those individuals you pointed guns at were doing in open carrying their firearm?
Form.
Are you asking me as I know now, or as we knew then as we were walking up the pier?
As you know now.
As I know now, the distinction is I'm a law enforcement officer, and they were gentlemen open carrying firearms, which is against the law in the state of Florida.
But you understand that the same provision that allowed them to open carry that day as you sit here today, you understand that the provision that allowed them to open carry that day is the same provision that allows you as an officer to open carry that day, right?
Back to the form of the question.
Do you understand that as you sit here today, officer?
Yes.
Form.
You did not have that information at that time, did you, officer?
Form.
No.
So as you approach these, at that time, 5 individuals on the pier with your firearm drawn, did you point your firearm at one or more of these individuals?
Yes.
Were you able to identify by name, as you sit here today, are you able to identify by name which individuals on the pier you pointed your firearm at?
No.
Can you describe which of the individuals you pointed your firearm at?
The first gentleman, or yes, I can.
Okay. How can you describe that? Describe to me who you pointed your firearm at.
Since I was on the far south side,
Mhm.
I only had line of sight on one individual who was furthest to the west of the group. He was holding a cell phone. I don't recall specifically what he was wearing or.
If I described him as the one that was the most mouthy of the group post detention, would that be the person you're describing?
Yes.
If I identify that person going forward as Mr. Taylor, we can use that name for the time being.
Okay. Yes.
Do you know which of any individuals, or excuse me, did you point your firearm at any other individuals that day?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe those individuals?
The larger gentleman in the group.
Okay. Can we describe him as the largest gentleman in the group?
The largest, sure.
He required 2 sets of handcuffs to be able to handcuff him, correct?
Yes.
Did you point your firearm at anybody else that day?
Not that I recall.
Were you one of the officers sent to detain 2 other gentlemen out at the entrance to the pier after you had detained the first 5 gentlemen?
Yes.
Did you point your firearm at at either of the individuals at the end of the pier when you went back out to the end of the pier?
I may have.
Do you remember which other officer went out to the end of the pier with you to detain those 2 individuals?
Yes.
Who?
Officer Garcia.
Do you know if Officer Garcia had his gun drawn when the 2 of you went to detain the other 2 individuals?
I don't recall.
Now, one of those individuals ended up being part of the group that was already out on the pier, right?
Yes.
All right, and I'm going to tell you his name was Jonah Weiss. Do you have any reason to dispute that was Mr. Weiss?
No.
Do you recall anything identifiable or distinctive about the other individual that was out at the end of the pier near Mr. Weiss?
Yes.
What?
He had a camera, Channel 7 camera.
Okay. So did you later determine that he was in fact a TV news reporter or cameraman
Yes.
for one of the local stations there in Miami Beach or in the Miami area?
Yes.
Y'all did not detain him beyond determining that that was his status, did you?
Correct.
But you did have to bring him out to the rest of the group to determine that that was his status.
Yes.
But as soon as you made that determination, he was released, wasn't he?
Yes.
Mr. Weiss was continued detained, right?
Yes.
But he was not placed in handcuffs.
I don't believe he was.
And do you remember if there was another individual with the initial group named Mr. Devine?
I don't know. I don't recall their names.
Do you remember that there was that of the original 5 individuals, one was not placed in handcuffs?
Yes.
Do you know why he wasn't placed in handcuffs?
I don't.
Was he the only one of the 5 initial individuals who did not have a firearm?
Yes.
Once you had, he did inform you or fellow officers that he was in fact part of the group that was on the pier, correct? With the firearms.
Yes.
So upon approaching all these people on the pier, did you, in reviewing your body cam footage, did you hear yourself and or fellow officers give conflicting commands during the initial detention of these 5 individuals?
Yes.
Some officers told them to put their hands down, correct?
Rephrase the question.
In your review of the video yesterday, what commands did you hear yourself or fellow officers giving to the 5 individuals as you approached?
I gave the commands to put their hands up to let me see their hands.
Hands up and let you see their hands.
Yes.
Okay. Did you give the command, don't reach for the gun?
No.
Did you hear a fellow officer give that command?
No.
Did you hear a fellow officer give any command regarding reaching or not reaching for their firearms?
No.
Did you hear a fellow officer give a command to put their hands down?
Yes.
Do you know which officer that was?
I believe it was Officer Garcia.
And giving conflicting commands like that, there was no way that these individuals could comply with both of these conflicting commands simultaneously, was there?
Objection of form.
You can answer.
They can comply.
They could comply with the command to both put their hands down and put their hands up at the same time.
Objection of form.
There were multiple subjects. I don't know who was speaking to who at which time. I was only focused on apparently Mr. Taylor.
Did you hear any officer specifically identify in any way which individual should put their hands up versus which individual should put their hands down?
No.
You were focused on Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
You had told him, as you were pointing your firearm at him, you had told him to put his hands up.
Yes.
If he had put his hands down, as one of the other officers said, in other words, if Mr. Taylor had mistakenly understood one of the other officers to be talking to him when saying, put your hands down.
Objection of form of the question.
I haven't finished my question yet, Mr. Switkus. I know you want to object to everything, but give me a minute to finish it.
I think I've been very patient and sparse in my objections, but go
Okay.
right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Switkus. All right, so officer, when you're telling a subject to put his hands up and he puts him down, that creates an increased alarm in your mind, doesn't it?
It depends on the situation, not necessarily.
Let's go a little more specific. If you were approaching an armed suspect that you have instructed to put their hands up and their hands start going down in the direction of their firearm, that is going to create an increased concern that you are about to have a deadly force encounter, doesn't it?
In this case, no.
Okay. So you weren't concerned about a deadly force encounter in this case?
Objection in the form of the question.
Yes, I was.
Okay. So you were concerned about a deadly force encounter in this situation, but you wouldn't have been concerned if Mr. Taylor had in fact put his hands down.
I understand. I understood. And if you watch the video, I ceased giving commands when I heard the other officers giving commands to allow one officer to give commands rather than multiple officers giving possibly conflicting commands.
Okay.
And how much weaponry did you have on you that day?
I believe it was a handgun and a AR pistol.
And Exhibit 4, is that a fair and accurate representation of the weaponry you had on you that day?
Yes.
show you Exhibit 5. Is that the bridge that you were arrested on?
I can't. It looks to be the down slope of the south side, but I can't verify if that's exactly where I was arrested.
Do you agree with me that the bridge where your arrest occurred is not a place where you could fish?
Yes, I saw the sign.
Okay, there's no fishing sign on the bridge?
Yes.
Okay. And was there a wall and a rocks down the end of the bridge?
At the end of the bridge?
Yeah.
Like, can you point to where?
Yeah, if you kept going.
If I kept going,
Were you walking north or south at the
I
time?
was going south.
South. If you kept walking south, do you know if there was rocks that extended out into the water?
I don't know. I never made it to that point.
Okay.
I was stopped on the bridge.
Let me show you Exhibit 6. You ever get to that area where the
No.
rocks come out over the water?
No.
All right. You agree though that Exhibit 6 is in Bal Harbor?
Oh yeah, it says Bal Harbor.
Yeah, it says no fishing from
rocks.
the rocks.
Correct.
All right. And then Exhibit 7, photograph taken at or about the time of your arrest. Bal
Never.
Harbor sign, no fishing from the wall or the rocks. Do you ever see that?
I never made it to that point that day.
Is there a jetty in Bal Harbor?
Yes, there is.
How many jetties are there?
Well, it's just the one jetty as you walk out to the rocks.
Okay. And is it the rocks that we see in Exhibit 6 or different rocks?
The only rocks I see is, it seems from this is the north side, and that's where I went to go try to fish, but then this is the south side where, and once again, I don't really know specifically where this, I believe, is like as you walk up and there's a big giant wall. This seems to be facing, I'm not really sure. Once again, I don't know the direction this is being taken.
Okay. But you agree that there's only one jetty in Bal Harbor, right?
On the Bal Harbor side, and then there's there's the north side and the south side. That's how I always refer to them, as the north side and the south side.
All right. Do you know if at the time of your arrest, if fishing was permitted on the jetty in Bal Harbor?
Fishing was permitted by the governor's order.
Okay. Did you encounter the sign that's on Exhibit 8?
The day I was released.
Okay. And what did that sign say about fishing on the jetty?
It was not allowed. This is the day after I was arrested. Then I came in and saw this sign.
Okay. Well, if law enforcement officers or citizens of Bal Harbor were to testify that the sign that's on Exhibit 8 was there on the date of your arrest, you would have no basis to dispute that, would you?
Oh no, I saw it the next day.
Yeah.
I was
okay.
there. I got video of that too.
Right. In other words, you're not saying that they just went and threw that out because you got arrested. You understand that was there the whole time, right?
No, that sign's never been there the whole time. It only went there when COVID happened.
Right. But on the day of your arrest, it was
The day of my arrest, it was there.
Yeah.
But the governor's order made that sign null and void.
All right. According to this sign in Bal Harbor, it's really hard for me to read this.
It says no fishing.
No fishing on the jetty, right? And do you have an understanding as to why Bal Harbor was prohibiting fishing on the jetty on the day of your arrest?
COVID.
Does that mean there was no fishing allowed anywhere in Bal Harbor?
There was no, at one point, there was no fishing. Any kind of activities were completely shut down from Palm Beach County, Broward County, Miami-Dade County, and Monroe. On, I believe it was March something 2020, the governor's order lifted, saying fishing was an essential activity. And I want to say it was March of 2020.
Do you know if your arrest was in 2021, right?
Correct.
Do you know if Bal Harbor was prohibiting fishing everywhere in Bal Harbor on the day of your arrest?
If it's accessible and you can fish, and I know prior to my arrest, people were fishing in Bal Harbor.
Right. What if you just went down to the beach and threw a line in the water? Do you know if that would have been prohibited?
On the beach maybe, but not at the jetty.
There were places on the video with you and Officer Congress, I'm sure you've seen it numerous times, and I've watched it as well, where you told him you were intending to fish, right?
Yep.
And were any of those locations areas that were allowed to be fished in by Bal Harbor that day?
On that day?
Yes.
To my knowledge, yes.
Which one?
All, like, everywhere except for the places that said no fishing. And I knew there were signs, like, right off the walls, right when you walk in, there's signs clear as day as you walk in. But I knew that that area of the jetty I was going to had numerous people had been fishing there for years before I had even been there. So,
And had you not been stopped by Officer Kunkus, you were gonna go out on that jetty and cast a line with an AR-15 strapped to your body?
until I ran across the sign that says there was no fishing. And that would be the same thing, principles of trespassing. If you see a sign that says no trespassing and you go beyond it, then you're breaking the law.
Right.
If I would have seen a sign that said no fishing, I would have turned around, mind you, at the inlet, not so much, if I'm not fishing off of seawall, it would have been one thing, but if I would have gone into the park and seen that one sign that you showed me, I would have turned around and walked right back to where I could have gone fishing.
And do you have any understanding as to where you could have gone fishing that day in light
Yeah.
of the sign prohibiting fishing on the jetty?
Yep.
Where's that?
That was on the north side of the bridge, or north side of the inlet, not at the jetty itself, but if you look at the north side, underneath, not so much underneath, but there's a seawall that extends from like the bridge and it extends out, and there's a fish, I guess I would say a fishing area that's not prohibited on that side.
All right, you're referring to Executive Order 20-91
I believe so.
and 2089.
I
Those are the
believe
ones
so.
you cited in your complaint. Okay. Had you ever fished in Bal Harbor?
Many years ago when I was young. I was probably like maybe 15 or 16.
Do you have any understanding as to what the population of Bal Harbor is? Who lives in Bal Harbor?
No.
Now, did you select Bal Harbor because you wanted to scare people with your AR-15?
My intention is never to scare anybody.
And you know Bal Harbor is an upscale community where people go and eat in expensive, nice restaurants and expensive shops, right?
My constitutional rights don't stop at somebody else's feelings. You know what I mean? I shouldn't be afraid to express a Second Amendment right. It doesn't matter. It could be, I stood in front of Trump Towers in West Palm. So to say that me doing X, Y, or Z is going to make the whole world scared, I'm sorry. If that makes you scared, I get it.
How was the flag that we see in Exhibit 1, how was that displayed, if at all, at the time that you were encountered by Officer Compass?
It was just flying.
All right. And where was your fishing pole at the time?
I believe it was attached. I had the fishing pole and the flag both in my left hand, and I had a camera in my right.
And you agree with me that at the time you were flying the flag because you wanted to draw attention to yourself as someone expressing your constitutional rights?
Absolutely.
And if an officer encountered you, it would be reasonable to observe you as someone who was there to make a political statement, don't you think?
I'm not out there making a political statement. I'm not out there preaching for Donald Trump. I'm not out there preaching for Biden. I'm not preaching for anybody. I'm just out there expressing a constitutional right. And
You were engaged in an expression of Second Amendment rights.
correct.
And you were expressing your Second Amendment right by openly carrying an assault rifle and the Gadsden flag.
I don't have an assault rifle.
What is an AR-15?
It's a armor light.
I know AR does not stand for assault rifle. I've
Well,
looked at it.
you keep referring to it as an assault rifle, and it's just a semi-automatic rifle. Or actually, it's not even a rifle; it's a pistol.
So you call an AR-15 a semi-automatic pistol?
The firearm I was carrying is a pistol,
All right. So let me take,
classified by ATF and all them. It's considered a pistol, not a rifle.
Okay. So you were expressing, you were engaged in an active expression of your Second Amendment rights by virtue of having a highly visible AR-15 strapped to your chest and carrying a Gadsden flag, right?
Absolutely.
And do you have any reason to believe that any Bal Harbor law enforcement officers observed you fishing or wetting your lure that day?
At the time, no, it was not possible, because if I would have been, my line would have been in the water, I've been breaking the law.
And in your mind, did it matter what type of fishing pole or fishing equipment you had on you that day to consider yourself as going fishing?
No.
If you had a net in a fishing net in your pocket, would that have been good enough?
By law, yes.
And if you had a little pocket fisherman that can only catch little minnow-sized fish, that'd be good enough?
Those pocket fishermen, there's YouTube videos of them catching 50-pound fish on a pocket fisherman. So you can try to make that analogy, but some of the biggest fish are caught on the smallest rods.
Right. So just to get your interpretation of the breadth of the statute, as long as someone is going to fish, no matter what fishing equipment they have, as long as they do it in an area that's permitted, public land, they can open carry.
As long as they're lawfully allowed to possess said firearm, as long as they have a valid fishing license, unless it's a free fishing weekend, and they're lawfully allowed to be in that area to fish, 100%.
Did you spend any money on the attorney?
Objective forum, but yes, I did.
Well, if you're not claiming it in this case, then I don't need to know. Are you claiming? Are you claiming in this case to be reimbursed for a criminal defense attorney?
No.
Okay, then I don't care.
Okay.
So as far as damages, how do you feel that you have been damaged? You spent 24 hours in custody, right?
Correct.
And how did you spend that time?
Wide awake, making sure I wasn't going to get jumped, beat up, or anything like that.
Since your release, have you gone for any type of counseling, psychological, anything like that?
No, I have not.
Do you have any intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, or bad memories from being incarcerated?
Yes.
And tell us about those.
It's not so much about the incarceration, it's more about the arrest.
And tell us how that arrest has affected you emotionally.
Basically, every time I see a law enforcement officer, I feel like I'm going to be arrested because they didn't understand the law. And I deal with that every time.
And even in light of this arrest, have you continued to open carry while fishing throughout the state of Florida with a GoPro?
Yes.
And do you make money by doing this?
Yes.
Because you post it to your YouTube channel and people watch your videos, right?
Yeah, yes, YouTube monetizes me, yes.
How many people subscribe to your YouTube channel?
As of today, about 80,000.
Oh, wow. Do they have to pay for that?
No. They don't even have to subscribe. They just
Hit a like button or something like that?
they just have to watch the video.
Oh,
So it
okay.
could be as simple as hitting subscribe doesn't get me any money. It just notifies you when I make a video. Hitting the like creates an algorithm, and the more likes I get, the more that video gets out there. But I technically don't make any money until they actually watch the video. So there's no, I can't force it on people, and I can't make them pay for it. I just put it out there, and they want to watch it, they watch it.
How many videos do you have on your YouTube channel?
I've hundreds. At this point, I couldn't tell you I have 2 different channels, and I think one channel has like 200 to 300 videos, and the other one's getting up there too.
Vast majority of you open carrying while fishing?
Open carry, government accountability stuff. Sometimes it's just, it's actually some of the kayak fishing. That's how my channel started. My YouTube channel name is Solo Yacker, and it started out with solo kayaking. I was a solo kayaker, and that's how I got Solo Yacker from.
far as any out-of-pocket money, other than the $200 for the bond, or you or your wife, out-of-pocket, any money as a result of this incident with Officer Kunkus?
The parking ticket that I occurred when my car was on the other side of the bridge, and they ticketed me for that as well.
How much that set you back?
I don't know, it was probably like 20 to 50 bucks or something. I don't know. It wasn't substantial enough, but it's more or less. Anytime I see a law enforcement officer come at me the way he did, it just rushes back that memory. And you know, in most of my videos, I'm a really nice guy until pushed, and then I will push back.
In the Miami Beach video, you had about half a dozen officers coming at you with guns drawn, pointed at you, didn't you?
Yeah.
And they put you in handcuffs?
Yep.
And they hurt your shoulder?
Yep.
You called them a bunch of fucking clowns, right?
Yeah. And I believe I did call Kunkus and his officers a bunch of clowns too. Because once again, he didn't care about my rights. He didn't. If you actually watch the video and I'm like, hey, what's this? He's like, I don't know what that is. When I asked him a specific statute number and he says he doesn't know what 901-151 is, that's an issue, because that's what crime am I? There's suspicion. You come out like, hey, we got a suspicious call. I'm going fishing. I've just dispelled your suspicion. Your suspicion's done with once I say I'm going fishing. But it wasn't over. He wanted to take my magazine. He wanted to know who I voted for. Like there was a sticker on my gun that said, I voted. He's like, who'd you vote? What does me voting and who I voted for have to do with anything? I could have voted for Biden, and what did that change?
Wouldn't change anything.
It wouldn't have changed anything.
Right.
And that's why that's the issue, right? Or for me, that's the underlying problem, is that he didn't care about my rights. All he cared about was taking my gun and doing what he had to do to figure out whatever.
Are you privy to the information that was communicated to him that led him to
I never received that. I've never received a 911 call.
You want me to send it to you so you can hear it?
Yes, please.
Would it surprise you to know that there were ladies that were scared of what you were doing?
Sure.
Okay.
I trust me. I do records requests. I've got numerous 911 calls on my channel, and I get people get scared.
Yeah.
I get it. I don't blame the people. My problem is law enforcement and how they came at me. And there was a sergeant there, there was another officer from another count, I think the other side of the bridge. There's all these people, and they're just telling me, oh, it's public order. Oh, it's because you got a gun. I get it. I have a gun, but I'm carrying it lawfully. And it was 6 minutes, and I was arrested. The video's in 6 minutes. I was in cuffs and getting put in the back of the car.
You were asked your name, right?
Yeah.
And did you not want to tell him your name for some reason?
I think I did tell him my name, but they asked me for my ID, and I said I don't have to. And that's where 901.151 of the Florida statute comes into effect. What crime am I committing? And if I've committed a crime, by law, I have to produce it. Just because you have a suspicion that I might be committing a crime, unless you know I've committed a crime, about to commit a crime, or have committed that crime, I don't have to show you. That's Florida law.
Did you have your ID with you?
I did. I had driver's license, fishing license, everything. Anything and everything that could have identified me, I had. And as soon as they arrested me, I was like, yep, here you go. It's all yours.
All right. And you were searched incidental to arrest, right? After you were arrested?
I don't remember when I was under arrest. I remember the handcuffs going on and then them searching. Okay. I don't remember them saying you're under arrest or any rights being read or anything. But I definitely remember handcuffs went on and they were digging into my pockets and finding whatever.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't have any other questions for you.